You guys didn't really ask for it, but today we're going to be talking about a very weird and aggressive scent. Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Often. I'm Daniel, today we're talking fragrances, and this is a practical review of Beaufort London's Tonnerre. These reviews are for fragrances that I have a lot of experience with, multiple wears in many situations, and I'm meant to give you a general idea of what it feels to wear the fragrance. As per usual, although I do a lot of research before buying fragrances, I don't really like to go into details about notes and accords, as I don't think that they help the end user. I'd rather talk about the wear experience as a whole. If you've watched my other two reviews of Beaufort London fragrances, if you've seen me feature Beaufort London fragrances as options in those segments, you know what this house is about. This is an absolute savage, wild house with very creative fragrances, super particular. Tonnerre, or also as it's known, 1805 Tonnerre. This one here, for whatever reason, does not have the 1805 on the label. Maybe it's an older batch. Anyway, this fragrance is very well known to be one of the most aggressive, pungent, bitter, and just savage fragrances on the market. It's an absolute beast of fragrance. It's super loud, very difficult to wear. It's just such a wild ride. And these fragrances in general from Beaufort London are all very strange. Today is all about weird fragrances. The extreme house of Beaufort London is born in the UK from the mind of the drummer of the band The Prodigy. The house is inspired by naval battles and naval explorations in the Victorian era. Even the name Beaufort London comes from Sir Francis Beaufort, one of the naval legends of the time. It's an extreme house with extreme imagery, really interesting narrative, really interesting historical ties. I really like everything about them, despite the fragrances being pretty much borderline unwearable. The core of the brand, the scent DNA of the house, basically revolves around the thick black smoke note. Very bitter, very aggressive, and very pungent. This black smoke permeates every fragrance as its protagonist, and it's very apparent even in Tonnerre. Tonnerre is one of the highlights of the house, in my opinion. It really represents the spirit of the house. As I said before, the house is inspired by naval battles and naval exploration, but not the friendly kind, not the romantic kind. Even if you think about pirates, which is kind of an extreme sort of a concept itself, the pirate aspect in here is real. It's filled with dirt, it's filled with grime, it's filled with smoke. It's not romantic. It's very harsh. It's the harsh reality of being a pirate, and Tonnerre is all of this. It's basically a representation of the horrors of naval conflict. Tonnerre, the name of the fragrance itself, I think is inspired by the name of a ship which was involved in such a conflict. I'm not really sure. I usually love researching Beaufort, but it's so difficult. Sometimes their website really helps, like in the case of Terror and Magnificence, there was a lot of information there, and then you could pinpoint that information with Wikipedia and just reconstruct the picture. With Tonnerre, I'm a little bit more puzzled. As mentioned, the fragrances from Beaufort London are all very extreme, aggressive, and difficult to wear. Surprisingly though, within this cloud of chaos and madness and blackness, there is some nuance, there is some variety. Tonnerre is part of the Come Hell or High Water collection, together with other fragrances. These ones here really focus on the naval aspect of travel, battle, and trading. Really interesting stuff. It's as I said before, it's not a romanticized version of that. It's a very rough, very realistic, and very gritty version of ship life. And again, if you watched my review for Rake and Ruin, you might be asking yourself, why the hell is he putting himself through this again? Tonnerre is another one of those incredibly smoky, bitter, and fatiguing fragrances. Why do I keep reviewing these? Why do I keep getting these? And why do I keep holding on to these? Well, there's something about stinky fragrances, there's something about this type of stinky fragrance that really challenges me. I already talked about this in Frag Talk episode 7 when I had my conversation with Luke. In that episode, I actually featured Vien Armis, and I explained how the bitterness and the edginess of that fragrance are very challenging to me, almost to a taunting level. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with these bottles, but I feel that they sit on the shelf and they just stare me down. They threaten me. They're taunting me to smell them and to wear them. Really weird. And when I do wear these, I feel very much outside of my comfort zone. I almost feel nervous, and I talked about this fact specifically extensively in my review for Rake and Ruin. That fragrance was so bad that I had to just trade it away. Tonnerre overall follows suit with Rake and Ruin. It's considered one of the more challenging fragrances from the house. Very bitter, very aggressive, incredibly difficult to wear. Surprisingly enough though, I'm not really getting any naval anything in here. I have a completely different picture in mind, but we're going going to talk about the scent profile and wear experience after we cover the presentation. Presentation-wise, Beaufort London bottles are very recognizable. They're very creative, almost to an iconic level. I'm really digging the black metal look, the very gothic, dangerous look. These are very threatening sort of fragrances. I do consider the quality of the presentation in general middle upper tier. The bottles do feel nice, the boxes feel exceptionally nice, but the bottles themselves are plagued by some quality control issues which I already covered in my previous 2 reviews. The finishing on these bottles, this smoke effect is really cool because they give the bottle a very shiny look from the front, but when you look through it through a bright light, you can easily see the liquid content. But the smoke finish is very, very fragile. It can scrape off, it can scratch off even by cleaning it, so you have to be extra careful. The cap is this black block of wood, which doesn't even feel like wood. It feels a little bit too light, but I know it's wood because my other bottle, again, quality control issues, of Terra Magnificence has this little chip which allows you to really see the wood fibers. The cap is light, as I said. It has this plastic insert that loosely clicks into the bottle. It's pretty unstable. I wouldn't necessarily pick up the bottle from the cap every time, but it does the job. The atomizer for Beaufort London is also middle to low tier, really not that great. It sprays, it does the job, but it's not pressurized, it's not really fun to use. Again, quality control issues. I bought a bottle of Iron Duke for my buddy Nat. When she got it, the atomizer was defective. Thankfully, Beaufort London just replaced the whole thing. Let's give this a couple sprays to showcase it. Again, nothing great, but it does the job. This is definitely not office safe. Very pungent, very aggressive. I'm wearing it as my scent of the day, as I usually do when I review fragrances. I guess that this is just one of those days where I feel like being challenged, and this one here definitely does that. Anyway, going back to the presentation, the smoky finish is cool but kind of impractical. The labeling is good, really good. It's actually the only good aspect of the presentation. It feels high quality, it feels well done and stuck on, and I just overall dig the look and the style. Overall, presentation for Beaufort London products is a little bit of a mixed bag. If you ignore the quality control issues, or if you don't have any, you'll have a good time. These bottles have a definite look and style. They have a nice vibe. The black dangerous look perfectly describes the type of liquid that you find within these. Price-wise, Beaufort London products are pretty affordable, I have to say. I think that the bottles run about £120. They're very, very difficult to find at discounters or just in general. They don't even ship to Switzerland. I already asked the company, they don't reply to me. So I have to rely on other people. I have to rely on the secondhand market to grab these. But it's finally time to talk about the scent profile and wear experience for Tonnerre by Beaufort London. What does this actually smell like? So to put it very simply, Tonnerre smells like iron, it smells like smoke, it smells like blood, it smells like rough times. As I was explaining before, this fragrance is inspired by and really meant to depict in clear manner the horrors of naval conflict. Everything about ship battles, cannonballs, gunpowder, blood, wood, people screaming, everyone sinking into the deep ocean. It's really brutal. Also, as I teased before talking about the presentation, the images that I get from this are completely unrelated to everything naval battling, naval transport, naval exploration. There's nothing ship about it. Every time I spray this, I'm immediately transported to the train station actually. And I'm sitting on the platform and I'm waiting, and this platform is dark, it's dingy, it's foggy, it's a very horror-like scenario. And suddenly I hear this train arriving, this screeching train. And as this train is arriving, you can sort of hear in the distance, you feel the tremors in the train tracks, you feel the rumble under your feet. It doesn't even feel like a passenger train, it feels more like a freight train arriving at full speed. This train is almost not meant to stop at this station. And if you've ever been at a train station while a freight train is passing, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These trains are not meant for comfort. They're super loud. They're super screechy. They smell foul. They smell dusty. They smell warm, like warm air. But they also smell like iron. They smell like rust. Really intense stuff. And I'm picturing this train screeching down the track almost like a banshee, and as it's passing me, I'm almost blown over by this gust of warm, dirty air. It smells like engine, it smells like oil, like dust, like rust, like iron. Really intense. This smells exactly like that. Really interesting and intense stuff. It's especially interesting because this whole train thing is not even part of the narrative. This is all about naval conflict, and here I am sitting on my sofa smelling this and being transported to the train station. But to be a little bit more specific, let me tell you what this smells like. So when you first spray this on, it smells like this warm, dusty, dirty, grimy cloud of iron. And it's very bitter. It's very sour. And it has this citrusy dirtiness, this citrusy tartness to it. It kind of smells like a dirty lemon or dirty burnt lime rolling around the coals of a fireplace or of a furnace. It's also sour and tart. It kind of tastes like a lime shot, something that you would take with some sort of a liquor like a tequila. Again, I'm not a liquor connoisseur, but it's very jarring. It's shocking in a way. It's bright, it's pungent, it's really, really overwhelming. And I'm especially sensitive to bitter, pungent, smoky notes that have this burnt rubber sort of aspect. The smokiness in here is definitely one of those. And again, I'm sensitive to that. Even fragrances that have this oud note, which is a little bit rubbery, are quite difficult for me. So this is especially challenging. As weird and aggressive as this opening is, it really doesn't last all that long. This bitter sourness from the citruses, maybe from the lime, fades off pretty quickly, leaving space to this irony, rusty, dusty sort of feeling. I guess it's the blood accord. Blood is usually depicted with iron, and it smells hot. It smells like a steaming piece of iron, which is just dusty and has been working as an engine part. As the scent cools off, pun intended, as the scent dries off, the bitterness, the smokiness starts fading. It's always present, the smoke component there is always noticeable, but it just becomes more and more tolerable. Again, I was joking with Luke when talking about Bien Armé, talking about how also that fragrance really transitions, but that maybe it's my brain trying to safeguard my nose, trying to safeguard my senses. Maybe it's happening also here, but the fragrance lets out a little bit, and it doesn't last too long, thankfully. This is a brief and intense wear. It wears heavily and harshly for about 2 to 3 hours, and then it quickly starts fading into skin scent phase. Again, even in the skin scent phase, it's still very detectable, still very pungent, still very noticeable. The scent overall sits in the mid-tone of the tonal range. It has some bright parts, especially in the opening with those citruses, but it never goes rumbling in the base. Actually, some base action, some sweetness would really help alleviate a lot of the harshness of this scent. Unfortunately, it's just that. Very, very harsh, very difficult. Overall, the wear experience for this is light, surprisingly light, fleeting, but very, very intense. It's kind of like lighting a match, kind of like lighting gunpowder. You get a bright flash of light, you get a lot of pungency, you get a lot of smoke, but then you just close your eyes and it's gone. Really interesting scent, really, really challenging. This, again, as I mentioned before, is not work-safe friendly. It's not really anything friendly. This is a meditative fragrance that you wear to be challenged, to be transported into this interior conflict. Because again, it's not super narrative. It doesn't really bring you to naval battling per se. There's barely any saltiness. I think that there's supposed to be a salt accord, like a marine accord, but this is really not marine at all. Maybe this marine aspect is hidden behind this black cloud of smoke. I don't really detect it. Again, to me, it's all about the interior conflict. This is a very challenging scent, which I find surprisingly meditative because you can't ignore it. You have to just deal with it. You have to deal with the discomfort. It's an incredibly fascinating experience. But let's talk some practicalities for Tonnerre by Beaufort London, starting off with performance. Performance is a little bit strange because when you first spray it on, it's loud. It's very, very loud. It kind of lacks that room-filling capability that other fragrances have just because it doesn't have any base notes. It doesn't have any sweetness. It doesn't have anything that really permeates the room like a fog. This is a flash fire. As I said before, it's kind of like lighting gunpowder, like lighting a match. Very, very intense, but doesn't last much. And once that projection is gone, which is about after 45 minutes to an hour, the scent really dries down, really cools down fast, and it becomes a skin scent. In its skin scent phase, it lasts a surprising amount of time, meaning that it's always detectable. This very bitter, smoky aspect doesn't really blend with anything. It just sticks to your skin like the greasy, ashy residue from a furnace or from a badly tuned fireplace that is just throwing out smoke. Really strange, really intense. And again, although the longevity is there within the skin set phase, it's quite tolerable. It's not too horrible to wear. Only in the opening you get this massive, headache-inducing dark smokiness. I would have to conclude that the performance in general for Tonnerre is not really useful. It's actually quite messy and kind of all over the place, but for some reason, somehow, it's actually very well tuned for this fragrance. Any longer than this, any more than this, it would make this fragrance completely unwearable. When it comes to actual real-world versatility use cases, as you may suspect, Tonnerre has basically zero of it. It has zero versatility. You can't really wear this anywhere. You can't really wear it to the office. You can't really wear it to the gym. You can't really wear this in any situation except for maybe some weird evening party that has a little bit of a horror theme. This is a very specific fragrance with a very specific, aggressive, jarring smell. You don't want to come into a place or into a situation smelling like you're a chimney sweeper. This is exactly what you would smell like. A chimney sweeper that is also kind of covered in coagulated blood and that also had a shot of brandy or two. Again, not an advisable look. I wouldn't necessarily present myself like that. That being said though, this scent is surprisingly meditative. You just can't ignore it. It's just there. You have to deal with it. And this is the perfect scent for a day alone. If you want to take a walk in the forest, if you want to just sit at home in a more meditative state, if you want to deal with your thoughts, this is a very interesting scent. Definitely not a product for everyone. Not everyone is out there searching for a product with that sort of a use case. But if you are, this is an incredible scent. I really like how challenging it is and just how uncomfortable it is. Really, really interesting stuff. When it comes to demographics, it's super abstract. Anyone can wear this, no one can wear this. I would go for no one. It's just really, really strange, really bitter, really pungent. It doesn't have any gender or anything like that. If you have to force it into purpose, this would definitely be a lot more masculine because again, thinking about that image of a chimney sweeper, you really don't want to present yourself like that as a woman. Age-wise, this is, again, it really transcends age. It's not for anyone specific. It's very not youthful, or rather, I think it could be fun in a youthful environment if you really lean into the horror aspect, but as a practical fragrance, it really has no application whatsoever. When it comes to imagery and narration, as much as I appreciate the fragrances by Beaufort London due to their historical aspect, due to their inspiring nature, the naval battles, everything around that Victorian age, these fragrances are so potent, they're so in your face, they're so distracting that they don't really leave you much room for imagination, for interpretation. They just don't allow you to travel with your mind. They don't bring you in that space. I know I'm exaggerating, but it kind of feels like someone poking you with a red hot branding iron while trying to prompt you to come up with something creative. It's just very, very distracting. It just doesn't work. The fragrances are way too intense, way too loud, way too involving. Again, I like the narrative, I like the concepts, I like the inspiration, and I like the image that I get from this. It's just not necessarily a story. It's not a storytelling experience. It's not an enjoyable narrative experience whatsoever. All right, we're at the part of the video where I give you some options for my reviewed fragrance. In the case of Tonnerre by Beaufort London, I really wanted to go into the weird aspect. I really wanted to feature some fragrances which are surprisingly strange, jarring, and just pieces of art in a bottle. And Beaufort London is one of those houses that I don't really regard as useful. They're more inspirational as a concept, and these fragrances definitely follow suit. The first one that I could definitely not exclude is T-Rex by Zoologist. Zoologist is a brand that I really, really love. It's actually one of my favorite brands ever. I have a ton of their fragrances and all of them are very, very unique. They're so storytelling, they're so abstract, they're so fun at the same time, but they also are a little bit more narrative. They have a lot more focus. They're less overwhelming. T-Rex is the most overwhelming out of the bunch. It's the most resembling the Beaufort offerings. It has this very, very smoky, very bitter, very briny sort of opening. I already talked about this fragrance extensively in my review. I mentioned it multiple times. It's actually one of my favorite fragrances ever. I really like it. It has this pungent, jarring opening, which is so surprising. It will just sweep you off your feet, even if you're experienced. I've worn this fragrance a lot, and every time I smell it, I'm just overwhelmed by how insane it is in the start. The interesting thing about T-Rex, and the thing that in my opinion really elevates it above Beaufort as a creative product, is that this fragrance transitions a lot. Again, it opens up pungent, briny, smoky, very, very aggressive, but then it transitions to this very pulpous, indolic floral, kind of animalic, very sweet, very jungle-like. And then it transitions again, and it goes into this leathery, animalic aspect, very mild. It has a droney sort of feeling. I already talked about this in my full review, but the smell of this almost has an associated sound to it. It sounds like a deep, dark horn, like the ones that Hans Zimmer uses in his soundtracks. Really, really cool and interesting stuff. Again, the House of Zoologist is close to my heart. I love the work by Victor Wong. Amazing, amazing stuff. If you have to sample Zoologist, be sure to include T-Rex. It's a wild, wild ride. My second fragrance option, surprisingly, I just realized it now, is also by the same perfumer of T-Rex, by Antonio Gardoni. This one here is Douleur by Bogue. Bogue is a very avant-garde house, very, very pungent, very potent, very creative, very, very strange scents. Douleur is probably one of the more stranger ones from the house. It has an incredibly strange combination of notes. It features mint candy, it features bubblegum, it features oyster, and other weird stuff in it. It smells so pungent, so off-putting. This and my next option are probably some of the more challenging fragrances that I have in my collection, some of the more difficult ones to wear. I do try to wear this as often as possible, but I have to be in the right mood set. I kind of have to have that challenging mood, kind of like the Beaufort London mood. But this one here really catches me off guard every time. The clashing notes in here, the contrast between the sweet candy and the oyster is really, really off-putting. It doesn't smell good, but it doesn't smell bad either. It just smells really weird and really creative. I'm tempted to put this on, but I'm already wearing Tonnerre and it would be an awful combination. But so weird. The mintiness in here combined with the sweetness, combined with that oyster note, combined with some sort of a burnt rubber accord. It's just so off-putting. It feels so freaking random. It feels like the perfumer is intentionally making the fragrance disturbing. It feels like he's having a good old laugh behind the corner while people are trying to wear this and make sense of it. Very, very strange. This is, again, insanely challenging, insanely thought-provoking. Every now and then I have a spray in my arm while I work, and it's just really weird. It's almost psychedelic in nature. It just gets me thinking a lot, thinking about perfumery, thinking about creative thoughts, thinking about creative communication. Really, really interesting stuff. If nothing else, I have to applaud Antonio Gardoni, the perfumer, for this. He has such a unique way of putting together fragrances, so incredibly creative. The other fragrance that I have from Bogue, Mem, is much more beautiful, much more wearable. That is a stinky animalic lavender floral scent. Really beautiful. This one here, though, not really sure I can recommend it. It's interesting if you want to challenge yourself. By all means, find the decant if you can. Really, really wild stuff. I definitely saved the wildest and the weirdest for last. This one here is Vestibule by Toskovat in collaboration with Ataraxia. Actually, Toskovat is coming out with a proper Toskovat release for this called Vestibule Terror. And this is a wild fragrance. It smells like nothing else in my repertoire. It barely smells like a fragrance. It's so weird and challenging. It's just so off-putting. I don't want to go into the meaning of this fragrance too much because I really want to cover it in a full review. And to be completely honest, I just still have to wrap my head around it. It's just that weird. But this smells like Carolina Reaper, booze, and potatoes. It's so freaking weird. And the capsaicin component in here is just really apparent. And it's pungent to the nose. Like, it feels like you're breathing in spice, like spicy peppers, like really strange. Toskovat is one of those houses, in my opinion, which is kind of the peak of weirdness. Some may say that the fragrances by Toskovat, by David, are just intentionally chaotic, intentionally messy, and he's just basically feeding his customers crap. I don't necessarily agree because, again, everything is incredibly well thought out. He has a story, a narrative that really fits with the fragrances. Are these random concoctions? Is he shoving ingredients together, weird ingredients at that, and calling it a day, then finding a narrative that sort of fits? Or is he following a brief, following it with intent, and then creating these amazing creative products? Who knows? We'll never know. The point is that these fragrances are very unique. They're thought-provoking. Nothing else in the market smells like Toskovat. It's really fun to spray these on and to be transported into these scenes that Toskovat creates. The scenes are filled with melancholy. They're filled with violence and savagery. Really interesting creative vision. I really applaud the creativity behind these fragrances. If you can get yourself a discovery set by Toskovat, do so. It's impossible to find, so good luck. The fragrances themselves are always sold out. They're basically limited batches, really difficult to come by. I have 8. I'm going on 9. I just pre-ordered another one, spinal tap fluid on the wall or something like that. Really crazy ideas. I like it. It's not wearable. I don't expect these to be wearable. Vestibule is pretty much the worst that I have, the worst best one that I have, but still, it's definitely memorable and I really enjoy it and I'm really happy that I have it. But back to Beaufort London Tonnerre for my final recommendations and overview. In general, the house of Beaufort London is a very, very strong recommendation. If you're into weird fragrances, if you want something edgy, if you want something that smells completely different from everything else, you have to get yourself a sample set of Beaufort London. They're readily available, they're so unique, and they're just insanely powerful and insanely jarring. Just for that experience alone, go with a sample set, maybe even get all of the samples. They're just magical in that sense. You have to be into experimental fragrances for sure. As I said before, Beaufort London to me is a house that really goes into the weird category. Yes, they can be edgy, they can be dark, they can be gothic. This stuff is definitely more experienced than fragrance. This is what I would consider to be art in a bottle, with very little expectations of usability. So when talking about performance, when talking about sillage, when talking about longevity, all of these things are kind of meaningless. You're really not supposed to be spraying this going out on your day, going through your activities, to work, to the gym. It's really not its intended use. This is all about experiencing what the brand is trying to convey, really getting immersed in that inspirational period, in that inspirational imagery. Really interesting stuff for that. To me, it has the utility of being very meditative because, again, it's super distracting, really, really powerful, and I respond in that way to those fragrances. Even when I wear a Silver Oud by Amouage, and by the way, that when there's leagues more wearable than this, I'm put into that meditative, relaxed state. This one here doesn't necessarily relax me. It actually makes me a little bit nervous, but it's that nervousness that kind of fuels creativity, fuels thought. I really like this. I really like the House of Beaufort. I'm really looking forward to get the latest offerings, the one that are in the transparent bottles. Apparently they're all very marine, they're very ambergris inspired, they have amazing names, amazing imagery. I just can't wait to sample them. Once again, get yourself a set of Beaufort London if you like the art of perfumery, if you like the art of communicating in perfumery media. Amazing, amazing stuff. If you like this type of content, if you like my approach to video, feel free to subscribe. It's always massively appreciated and helps the channel. If you want to interact with me, leave a comment, suggestion, opinion, or anything else down below. I always reply and I always keep the conversation open. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time. It's never taken for granted. Many more reviews to come, many more fun, weird fragrances to cover. As usual, see you on the next one, and cheers.